Very good. We are holding on the Mishnah. Thank you, Jerry Abramson. That was as succinct and as clear an explanation of it. Because, in other words, on a global thing, in order to get them to go from Eretz Yisrael to Chulin, to Chutz La'aretz, right? And people are machmir gomor on Shemitah and the whole thing. Bezdin needs to take over ownership of everything. Essentially, they're saying, you guys can break even on the cost of your esrogim, whatever the cost does. You have to hire
the price on the lulavim.
But the lulavim themselves could be an issue if the dates grow on the lulavim, even though the lulav really is not a problem. But people are machmir that if there are dates growing from a palm tree, they don't want the lulavim from that palm tree either. So that's why it becomes there's much more involved here, less to do with out and out halacha, and much more to do with people's being
so we're not buying.
So he says they are when in next year, not this year, but next year we're almost certainly not buying chaznish, but we're going to get a better answer by tomorrow. Says the Mishnah, where Mashiach will be. Mem Aleph, he can come this year too, Daddy. I have no problem with that. Okay. Mem, nothing's getting in there. We're perfectly allowing him to come. Mem Aleph, Amid Aleph, that would be 41A2. We're about 3/4 of a daf behind, but that's okay because we had the hard, as you can see from Jerry's wonderful share, we were dealing with Shemitah being a very hard topic. We now move on to something else. Here's the rules. Midiyoi Raiso, right at the Mishnah. Midiyoi Raiso, there is only a mitzvah d'oraisa to take the lulav and esrog on day 1. That's it. V'lakachta lochem b'yoyim harishon, on the first day, creates other company tomorrow, and so on and so forth. Nonetheless, in the Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was Kaim, when standing, they took the lulav and esrog all 7 days. In the provinces, that means outside of the Beis Hamikdash, which the Pashtus, according to Rashi, includes Yerushalayim. Even Yerushalayim and onwards are called the provinces, the Medinas. They only took the lulav and esrog for 1 day. The one major problem with this is, Midiyah Raisa, you can take that lulav and esrog because it's a mitzvah. So even if it falls out on Shabbos, if day 1 falls out on Shabbos, or any other day of the week falls out on Shabbos, you should theoretically be allowed to take the lulav and esrog because oisik the mitzvah, pater min mitzvah. Being involved in a mitzvah paters you from another mitzvah. That's the way it goes, right? Nonetheless, the Rabbanon came along. The sages came along, and just like we do not put on tefillin on Shabbos, even though tefillin is a mitzvah to midos, it's a mitzvah of every single day, which includes Shabbos, but we do not put on tefillin on Shabbos. We do not blow shofar on Shabbos because of the overriding Shabbos idea of Shema Yavirenu Dalet Amos B'Shus HaRabim. Maybe I will come to carry from a Shus HaYochid, from a private area to a public area, 4 Amos in the public area, and thereby being over, breaking the prohibition of carrying on Shabbos. So how did you handle it? So says our Mishnah, very shine at the beginning. In other words, when the Beis Hamikdash Hayakayim, when the Beis Hamikdash stood, they would take the Dalet Minim, they would take it for all 7 days. And that included Shabbos. The Gezerah D'Rabbanon. In the Beis Hamikdash, we didn't worry about it. And we'll tell you why, and you'll see why as we work our way through. Umedina Yom Echad. And in the provinces, you only took it on the first day. Because it says, you should take for yourself on the first day. It's only on the first day. Okay? And that would mean that even if Shabbos fell out on the first day, you would take it the first day. Because an asay is doicha, Daddy, Aloy Sase. You shall take for you on the first day, override the loisase, the prohibition of not carrying on the Shabbos. However, that's when the Beis Hamikdash stood. Mishachora Beis Hamikdash when the where did I say? And nonetheless, we took it. But Mishachora Beis Hamikdash when the second, remember, because the thing about Shabbos is not a D'oraisa, it's only a D'Rabbanan. Shema Yavered Dalad Abbas. Perhaps I will come to carry it. It's only Gezer D'Rabbanan. There was no Gezer D'Rabbanan. But Mishachara Beis Hamikdash, but when the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, his skin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai came along Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Rabban. And you'll notice Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is called Rabban. Because of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, we are here today. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai told Vespasian, give me 5 of my students and let me go to Yavna and open up a small yeshiva in Yavna. And from those 5 students came the Shas that we are carrying today, etc., and Judaism as we know, rabbinical Judaism as we know it today. Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai came Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and he instituted Sheyehu Lulav Nito b'Medina Sheva Zeichel HaMikdash, that you shall take the lulav for 7 days like we do today, 7 days minus 1, of course, not on the Shabbos, because now it's only a D'Rabbanan that we take the lulav. Okay? That the lulav is not taken on the Shabbos, obviously without the Beis Hamikdash, but otherwise you would take all 7 days. Why? Zeichel HaMikdash, in a remembrance for the Beis Hamikdash, where we used to take it all 7 days. And while we're on the story, another Gezerah of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, out of left field, and the entire day of waving should be also from eating the chadash, the new crops. What are we talking about? On the second day of Pesach, i.e. Tez Zayin bin Nisan, on the 16th day of Nisan, they would bring the carbon ha'omer, the minchas omer, the mincha, the grain, the flour offering from the new sprouting grains, chodosh. And once that was brought, Minat Torah, everybody was now allowed to start using the new grains. So now, theoretically, okay, when the Beis Hamikdash stood, it was Chodesh was Asar until you brought the Omer, right? But when the Beis Hamikdash was Chorev, when the Beis Hamikdash was not standing, in fact, it was Mutter the Chodesh. When did the Chodesh become Mutter? The moment daybreak happened on the morning of the 16th of Nisan. On the morning of the 16th of Nisan, daybreak happened. You looked out the window of the sun, think you came to Boca Raton to daven at the early minyan at BJC, and bada bing, bada boom, you could have Chodesh. Why? Because mixes Sayom Kikulai. A part of a day is like a whole day. So it's not a problem. Since theoretically I could have brought the carbon mincha first thing in the morning, bada bing. So said the gear. Once it broke out, came along Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai to say, no, nonetheless, I'm asking you to use Chodesh until the entire 16th day passes, until the night of the 17th, until Yud Zayin bin Nisan. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain why he was going to this. Very good. Says the Gemara, we're now on 41.83. How do I know that we make things Zeichel HaMikdash? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Krog, as the pasuk says, is in Yirmiyah, Ki Allah aruchalach, for I will make a cure for you, Uma koisayich, and you from your wounds, Erofogech, Num Hashem, I will heal you. So says the word of Hashem. Kini docha karulach, for the nations of the world call you the discarded one. Sion who darish ein law, saying that Sion, you see it's Sion, no one is seeking her. From this pasuk, darish ein law, that no one is seeking her. Mechal the bayit derisha, that means that in fact she requires seeking. You do need to go seek her. Okay, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says the way you seek out Sion, one of the ways is by making the mitzvah of lulav and esrog be all 7 days like we have it today in remembrance of Tzion and the Migdash. So that one day when Mashiach will get here, it will be per part and parcel normal that of course we take the Lulav and Esek for 7 days because we were remembering how we did it in Tzion in Yerushalayim. Mishahaya Yom Hanaf. Now it goes to the last part that even though theoretically when the Beis Hamikdash is not standing, the moment the morning of the 16th arrives of Nisan, you should be allowed to eat the Chadash. Rabbi Yochanan said you have to wait until the whole day passes and the nighttime of the 17th arrives. My Tama, what's his reason? Listen to this. Meheiro Yibane Beis Hamikdash. Speedily the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt. The Yoimru, and people are going to say, without Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai's Gezerah, last year on the 16th of Nisan, didn't we become permitted to eat Chadash the moment that the sky in the east lit up? In other words, at daybreak. So this year too, even though now we have a Beis Hamikdash, we should be able to eat at daybreak. And they would not have realized that last year there was no Beis Hamikdash standing, right? Therefore, it worked by the early in the morning. The Beis Hamikdash is the Omer is Mate. Now that the Beis Hamikdash is standing, you got to wait for the carbon Omer, the Minchas Omer, to be brought. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said the entire 16th day you cannot eat Chodesh until the nighttime of the 17th. What's beautiful about this is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was establishing something else. Even though he will tarry, I will wait with bated breath that he will come. Our thinking has to be Mashiach's coming today, every day. Today's coming, so we have to calculate. We have to calculate that when is the Beis Hamikdash going to be built and how it's going to mess us up. Says the Gemara, the Ibnei Amos. When is the Beis Hamikdash going to be rebuilt? If you say it's going to be built on the 16th of Nisan sometime during the day, well then when dawn broke on the 16th, there was no Beis Hamikdash. It still didn't descend from the sky in fire. In that case, what did they do? As soon as the daybreak broke over the horizon, right, they got up to daven at the 6:45 minyan in BJC, and they ate the Chodesh, right? Because there was no Beis Hamikdash, so the daybreak broke for them. Elo the Ibnei B'Chamesa. Instead, it was built on the 15th of Nisan. But if it was built on the 15th of Nisan, right, therefore, it would have been also already by the 16th. Everybody would know that you need to bring the Omer, the Minchas Omer. So they would have known already you have to do it from the thing. So what's the mistake that's going to be made? Let it become a model from Chatzais, from midday of the 16th and onwards. Okay, I can understand you saying don't do it from the morning because you got to wait for the Omer, the Minchas Omer to be brought. But by midday, which is right before the carbon Beno Abayim, the afternoon Tomid, which closes the day, which happened at 12:30, right? 6.5 hours into the day, the Omer would have been brought. So by the 12 o'clock, let it be. Why do you have to wait for the nighttime? The hard, it's not because we learned the Rechoikim Mutar Mechatzei Sayam Lahalon. The Rechoikim Mutar Mechatzei Sayam Menon. The Pishain Bezdin Misatzlan Boy. Because Bezdin does not allow things to tarry. So by 12 o'clock it will be done. Says the Gemara, Tzricha the Ibnei Balayla, where the Beis Hamikdash gets built on the night of the 16th. Inami Samach L'Shkiyas Achamo, or perhaps before sundown on the 15th. In either way, the entire Omer is going to get delayed because the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built a bit too late. We're going to have to scramble to find the grains, etc., that weren't used, etc. We're going to have to run to Jerry's greenhouse in the Negev until we get there and pick it and the whole thing and make sure it wasn't used. It might mess us up. Very good. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, B'Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, according to the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar min HaTorah who says that in fact that when the Beis Hamikdash is not Kayim, the Beis Hamikdash is not standing, Midiyoi Raisa, it is actually forbidden to eat any new grains, Chodosh, all of the day of the 16th until the entire 16th of Nisan passes. Diksiv, because it says, and now we're on Amid Beis, Mem Aleph Amid Beis, Ad Etzem HaYom Hazeh, Etzem, specifically on this day, Ad Itzumoy Shel Yom, until the entirety of the day. Viksavar, Ad Vi'ad Bichlal. He means and including. That means the entire day, not part of the day, not Ad V'loy Ad Bichlal, Ad Bichlal. It and including, right? Until the 16th and including the 16th. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai holds that in fact the 16th is the entire 16th is forbidden midioraisa, is prohibited biblically to eat chodosh until the 17th arrives. Right? The Gemara me sabala kavase, but does Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai really hold like Rabbi Yehuda of hom mitzvah pligilev? He argues on him. The Tanya, because we learned in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is in Menachos.
Is not there.
What? No, he's saying when the Beis Hamikdash is not there,
then you have to wait.
You have to wait the whole day. He says it's midioraisa. So since it's midioraisa, it's not going to burn it. Then you wait for the oimer. Yeah, not chatzos. You wait for the oimer. When you wait for the oimer, no, you probably have to wait till 12 and a half hours till it was all done. Mumi Savala Kabose and would Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai really hold like Rabbi Yehuda? From Maflik Poligale argues on him. The Tanya Mishachar Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, his Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Yoim Hanav Kula Yasa. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted, which means that it wasn't there before. It's only his institution. It's a rabbinical institution. Amalai Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda says, but it's Minat Torah. Forget, we don't need your Gezerah, it's Minat Torah. Diksiv ad etzem hayom hazeh ad sheyitzum shel yom. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda the Kotoy. It was Rabbi Yehuda that was making a mistake. Who suffered midrabanan kama? He thought that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was instituting a new rabbinical Gezerah, a rabbinical ordinance that you can't eat the Chodesh until the night of the 17th, that the whole 16th was usher. V'loyi midiyaraisa kama. In fact, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was saying that biblically it's also you cannot eat it if there's no Beis Hamikdash kind. You got to wait the whole day of the 16th. But it says he instituted my hiskin dorash hiskin. He means it got forgotten. He came along. He dashed. He says now that the Beis Hamikdash is not standing, because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was there when the Beis Hamikdash got destroyed, as we know from the story with Vespasian. Right? Dorash Vehiskin, and that's what happened. Guys, just wait 1 second. I'm going to see why the air conditioning turned off. Just stay right there. Good.
Yeah, it's comfortable.
It's comfortable. Okay, so it's just me. Okay. Very good. Now we get to the next Mishnah. And remember what we spoke about when the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos. Yom Tov says the Mishnah, the Teilige Mishnah, Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag, Shechal Liyos b'Shabbos. The first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos. Kol ha'am moilichenes lubeim lebeis haKnesses. All the people would bring their lulavim and esrogim on Erev Shabbos. On Friday, they would bring them to shul. Lamacharas mashkimin umeivin. On Shabbos, they would come early. Each one would recognize his own lulav because he had his own lulav holder, and he would take his lulav. Would take it, and it was absolutely vital that on the first day of Sukkot, lakachtem lachem, for yours, for Yom Rishon. A person cannot fulfill his obligation of taking the lulav and esrog on the first day of Sukkot with the lulav of his friend, because it says for you, yours. of a Shayim Oisachah, which is only Midrabbanon. Adam Yaitzi Dechvasa Beluvla Shal Chaveroi. But on the rest of the things, we're on 41b3, b2. On the rest of the days of Sukkot, a person can fulfill his rabbinical mitzvah of taking the lulav and esrog. Rabbi Yosi Yontav Rishon Shechal Liyos b'Shabbos, up the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, v'Shachach, and he forgot that it was Shabbos. He was so excited, it was Sukkot, he forgot it was Shabbos. V'Hoitzi is a lulav Rishus Harabim, and he takes his lulav out to the Rishus Harabim, right? Therefore, committing by accident the transfer, the malacha of carrying on Shabbos, which normally would mean he's chayav to bring a carbon chatos. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, potter, he's potter from bringing a carbon chatos with neshahaiti b'rishus because he carried it out with permission. It doesn't mean with permission. It means he was oisik the mitzvah, since he was doing for the purpose of a mitzvah, while of course he was over on carrying on Shabbos. Nonetheless, it's an oinus, it's not considered a shoygeg, and he doesn't have to bring it. And in fact, the Rambam paskins like this. Okay, the Rambam, if you take a look, the little aleph on the side, Perik Beis Mehilchus Shagagus Halacha Yud. Okay, says the Gemara that the Amisha said you cannot fulfill the lulav obligation with somebody else's lulav on the first day of Yom Tov because it says v'lakatem lochem. How do we know this halacha that you can't borrow and you can't use somebody else's lulav? We see it's first it says we should take that each one should take a lulav. That each one of you should take. You got everybody. In other words, not that the Rav goes ahead and takes lulav and esrog, and everybody's yoitza with the Rav taking lulav and esrog, but instead every single person in the shul should have a lulav and esrog. Lochem. No, you might think just for the word v'lakachtem. So your daddy, right? Okay. In other words, if you ever remember by JJ, if you ever done by JJ on Rav Yaakov Yosef Halberstam on Sukkot, his nanunim took 45 minutes. They still do. That's why you don't daven there, because you're not a chosek.
Let me ask you something. In the Altaheim, on a real story.
Yes.
Everybody had a lulav and esrog.
No.
I'm talking. Right?
No.
The Rav had it. Maybe you had a couple, and you passed it around.
Jerry, wait 2 minutes. The Gemara is about to handle this. Very good. Exactly. First, the Gemara is putting down the halacha, and then it's going to say, what's going on? Let the Gemara work its way exactly right down that thing, and I was coming to exactly where you're coming to. So let's go. That everybody should have their own, because otherwise I might think that we're all chassidim of Rabbi Gibber. This Rabbi Gibber take a little bit of esrog, and we would be yitzim. No, we should each take. But that doesn't tell us that we need our own. Lochem, mishalochem. It has to be yours. Lohoitzi, it's a shov, it's a guzzle, to exclude the borrowed lulav and the stolen lulav. Mikan amru chachamim. From here came the chachamim to say, on the first day of Chag, the lulav shel chaverei Elohim. Now say the next words, Jerry. Elohim kei nastalai b'matana.
Right.
Unless you give it to your friend like a matana. And what's that? Daddy, why are you giving away this story? I don't see that. Where does it say Almanas Lachzi? I don't see it. It just says matana. Because you're a Talmud Chacham and Jerry's a Talmud Chacham. We don't know that yet. Let the Gemara teach it to us. You do that, you might as well print out pages of the Gemara. Just because we know this already. The real question is, how do we even know that? Did you ever think about it? A matana on the condition that it's going to get returned to me. That's a present. That's called Indian giving. Right? It's called Indian giving. That's not giving. But Who said you could do that? Because who said you could play games like that? The answer is, says the Gemara. It sounds like the story in the Haggadah, except this is now taking place by Sukkot. They were taking a cruise on the first day of Sukkot, and I know my father's day. What in the world are all these Rabbanim taking a cruise in the middle of Sukkot? Daddy Zaytos, that sometimes, as Jerry can tell you, even then there were Jewish tours. You see, they did go away for Yom Tov. It doesn't say that. The mitzvah was that a bunch of Jews wanted to be on a ship off of Sukkot, right? And they needed the Rabbanon there, right? A Sukkot program. I knew it.
No, the fact is that Gamliel holds is it's going to be later. Yeah. Sukka on a ship.
On top of the ship. We've had that before.
So that means
the answer is they didn't do it on the top of the ship. They did it on the deck, not all the way on top.
That doesn't mean on the top. It means a sukkah on a movable ship.
So guess what? You know what he held?
That means Rabbi Kiva says it's good.
It's kosher. So that means
Rabbi Gamliel did
only ate it right. He only ate it right. Correct. He only ate it right. Or he called himself Mitzvah, Potem and Atzukah. Could either rely on Mitzvah, Potem and Atzukah, or he ate it right. But that's probably the answer, by the way. But let's get to it when we get to it. That we're traveling on a ship on the first day of Sukkot. And only Rabbi Gamliel had the Arba Minim with him. Which he bought for 1,000 zuz, $10,000. Not Rabbi Gamliel Yoitzabai. Rabbi Gamliel took it and fulfilled his mitzvah of lulav with it. Nosnu Rabbi Yeshua b'matana. He then gave it to Rabbi Yeshua. He said, Rabbi Yeshua, I got a present for you. Not Rabbi Yeshua b'Yotzabai. Rabbi Yeshua took it and fulfilled his mitzvah of Arba Minim, and not Rabbi Elazar ben Azai b'matana. Then Rabbi Yeshua now owned it as a gift, gave it over to Rabbi Elazar ben Azai as a gift. Not to Rabbi Elazar ben Azai Yotzabai. Rabbi Elazar ben Azai took it and fulfilled his obligation with it. Not to Rabbi Akiva, then gave it over to Rabbi Akiva. Not to Rabbi Akiva, but Yotzabai, but Hechselay Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Akiva came and took it and fulfilled his obligation with it, and then returned it to Rabbi Gamliel. Before we begin, I just want to point out something. Rabbi Gamliel was the original Nasi. He gave it over to Rabbi Yeshua because Rabbi Yeshua was the grade of the nation. He didn't want to give it directly to Rabbi Elazar ben Azai because he had an issue with Rabbi Elazar ben Azai. Rabbi Elazar ben Azai took over the Nesias from him in the great fight, if you remember, in Bava Metzia. So he gave it over to Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua, of course, gave it over to Rabbi Elazar ben Azai, the other Nasi, and only then did Rabbi Akiva get it at the end of it. Okay? But anyways, so what do you see over here? He was the youngest. He was the youngest. Also, he was only Rav. He was only Rav in B'nai Barak. Shahid Mesubim B'nai Barak. Rabbi Akiva was Rav in B'nai Barak. Anyway, so the rest of them were the things. So anyways, here we go. So what do you see? Then in fact, you can give it to the next guy as a gift, as long as you don't lend it to him because you got a problem of lochem. Why does the Tana come teach us that Rabbi Akiva returned it to Rabbi Gamliel? Milsa agav orcha kamash malan. And they come in to teach us another halacha, which we didn't know, Daddy, before this. That what? Matana manach lahachzir, a matana on the condition of returning. Shemei matana is a gift, is a full gift. A gift with a condition is a gift.
You give me a matuna, I'm going to slap.
Well, don't say it. It's chal. Of course it is. Sure it is. Right, but you have to return it because we're going to get back to it. Yeah.
I just got a hot email, hot WhatsApp from Rabbi Tuvia Weiss, from head of the Eidah Charedes. You ready for this?
Let's hear it.
Okay, here it is, translated. I asked about the Chazon Ish Esrogim. Remember, my hashgacha, I made under Ada all of my broccoli
right, all your stuff.
So I asked him a question about what type of Chazon Ish. He said because there's an extra chumrah not to send Shemitah fruit out of Israel, even though you make an Ocher Bestin. The Chazon Ish Hechsher is more machmir regarding sending to Chutz La'aretz. Okay?
Wow.
Some Chazon Ish growers do not do anything during Shemitah. So this just came from Tuvia Weiss. Just
Could you
literally, as you and I are talking.
Can you send it to me after the shir?
I can send it to you shortly, sure.
Very good, great. Wow. Tuvia Weiss, the great the head of the Eidir Charedis, just WhatsApp Jerry that Chazon Ish Yisraelim, it's a chumrah that they don't want their fruits leaving Eretz Yisrael. Shemitah fruits are not supposed to leave Eretz Yisrael.
So there's not going to be any Chazon Ish.
There's no Chazon Ish. In fact, some Chazon Ish growers just leave the field flat fallow, leave the Esrogim on the tree.
I just sent it to you.
Thank you so much.
Go there and pick it out from the tree.
You can go there and pick it out from the tree. Right, if you want to do that. So, but Daddy, there's another piece of Gemara over here about the 1,000 zuz. So we're going to talk about picking it for free is not the way to go. But let's get
correct.
That's this Gemara right here. Okay, we got 10 minutes, so let's go for it. Let's get on to today's daf. Matana manach zadishmei matana. Now, Daddy, you know about it. If a person says to his fellow, to his chaver on the first day of Sukkot, here is my esrog, I'm giving you my esrog on the condition that you return it to me, not lubiyotzabay. The guy, the chaver takes the esrog, gets it, and then he's mekayim the mitzvah. Hechziro, listen to this. Hechziro yotza, lo yechziro lo yotza. If he returns the esrog after he uses it, it means he fulfilled the condition of the present, which was to give it back. So the present is chal, and therefore his taking of the esrog was good. But if, when he got the present, he uses the esrog, and then after he uses the esrog, he never gives back the esrog, it turns out the condition on the gift was never fulfilled. It turns out it was never a gift. If it was never a gift, it's a stolen esrog. Brilliant. So it turns out that after the fact defines what took place now. Hufra double in Afreya. And from here's another ayah sort of about Yesh Brera. Lama lila mema sholchu ba'alav zuf. Why do I need to know that Rabbi Gamliel spent 1,000 zuz? Because there are people like my father that say, there are growers in the Chazon Ish that on Shemitah just leave the esrogim on the tree and I can walk in there and pick it off the tree for free. I did not just say, Loidiacha, Kama mitzvahs chavivi aleihem, right? To inform us how much the mitzvahs was endearing to them, to the Chazal of old, that they would spend b'chol mi'odecha, how much they would spend on a lulav and esrog. Amalei mar barameim l'Ravashi, Abba aluyei kametzalei. Father would pray for it. In other words, Ameimar would have davened for the love of the mitzvah lulav, that he would hold the lulav in his hands while praying, while davening. So here's the interesting thing: we hold the lulav and esrog l'chol ha'brachos during the whole hallel, and that's, as we're going to see, is not so simple. But listen to this. Here he's talking about during Shemona Esrei, obviously. Meisvei, which we do not. Meisvei, lo yoiches adam tefillin biyadai. A person should not hold his tefillin in his hands. The sefer Torah b'cheikai, or a Torah scroll in his bosom. The yispalel and daven. V'lo yashnim behem mayim, and he shouldn't go to meiraglayim. Shouldn't do number one with tefillin in the hand. V'lo yishan behem, v'lo yishan kabab, v'lo yishan aray. Shouldn't sleep with them. Not a normal sleep or a nap. V'amar Shmuel. Sakin, ukoro, kikor, umois, even a knife, a plate of food, a loaf of bread, and money, are similar. Don't daven with things in your hand because you might come to drop them, right? And we don't want you to do it. You'll get distracted. 41b4. Hossam says, so you see, how then could Amema allow the holding of the lulav while davening. Why aren't you afraid you might drop the lulav and esrog while davening? Halavai, we should daven with such kavanah. Hasam lav mitzvah ninu. This is not a man where those were not mitzvahs. But taribu, so therefore the Torah, the plate, the thing. If I'm not wearing the tefillin are not a mitzvah, so I might drop them. Hacha mitzvah ninu. Since the lulav and esrog, picking up the lulav and esrog is the mitzvah. So yeah, loy taribu, he's not Torah in it. It's part and part of his davening. Tanya, we learned, Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok Omer, Kachayim minogin shel anshe Yerushalayim. This was the meaning of the people of Yerushalayim. Adam yoytze b'beisa b'lulav b'yoder. A person leaves his home with the lulav in his hand, in his lulav holder. Hoylach l'beisa k'nezim b'lulav b'yoder. He goes to shul with the lulav in his hand. Koyre Krishma mispalel b'lulav b'yoder. He says Krishma Shemona Esrei with his lulav in his hand. Koyre v'Torah v'noisa eskapov. But when he reads the Torah or raises his hand, if he's a kohen, to give the birchas kohen, menichel agabe karka, he puts it on the ground or on a table. Hoylach lebaka cholim u'menachem avelim. If he goes to be mebaka cholim u'menachem avelim, there's no nichem avelim. There's no consoling the mourners on Yom Tov because the asay of the rabbim of Simcha is mevatel the asay of the yochid of avelos. But we're not talking about actual nichem avelim. It talks about a guy. Listen. Guy has no avelos, but the bottom line is somebody just passed away, right? You come and you visit the derech agav to make him feel good. So over there you went with the lulav and biyodeh with the lulav in your hand. Nichnas lebeis medrash, but if you went into the house to go learn, remember the basic knesses, the place where you daven, but you had to focus on your learning. You give his lulav to his son, his servant, or his messenger to hold it or bring it home. My Kamashmalon, what is the whole purpose of telling us about the Anshe Yerushalayim? Lo'edicha Kama is the reason for the mitzvahs, how diligent they were in the performance of mitzvahs. Rabbi Yosi Yontif, that if the first day of Yontif falls out on Shabbos and by accident you end up carrying, don't worry about it. You don't have to bring a chatos. Amar Abaya, says Abaya. Abaya is going to limit this a little bit. We're just heading to the Mishnah. We're on today's daf. Lo yishanu ela shelo yoytze boy. That's only if he has not yet been yoytze the mitzvah of Sukka. A lulav and he's going to shul. Aval yoytze boy chayev. But if he's coming back from shul, or he shook the lulav and in his house before coming to shul, then he's chayev chatas. Says the Gemara, midig agbe nofik bay. But from the moment that he picks up the lulav and esrog, he's mekayim the mitzvah. The whole mitzvah is simply the tilas lulav, picking them up. So when he picked them up to take them to shul, he's immediately yoytze. So the next step that he takes, by definition, is not a mitzvah anymore. Then in every case, he should have to bring a chatos. Says the Gemara, our case, where he turns it upside down. In other words, he takes the lulav bundle and he holds it upside down, or he holds it like we do, or the edge, the way we do. We carry the lulav in a holder, etc. Even if he doesn't invert it, where he carries the lulav in a lulav holder. But we just learned a few dafim back that taking by the means of something else is considered a valid taking. So we actually say, I'm taking my lulav to shul. So you see that it is a taking. How do you really derek covered? The taking is only when it's done in a covered way. And swinging it like it's a rifle, right, is not a covered way. So in other words, don't get too fancy a holder. Get a simple plastic holder, and that solves the problem. Amar Rav Huna, Oymar Hoy Rabbi Yosi. Oh, you have to the whole time. Hepakabana. Right? Yeah, maybe this man normal holds mitzvah saying it's kabana.
You say I don't. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you're saying I'm not.
You're not the kind. Except those words are so hard to say.
You don't even have to say it. You have to think.
You have to think about it. It's so hard to think that. People don't think that.
Automatically.
All right. Anyway, let's go back. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rabbi Yosi, A slaughtered oiler bird that's found among other birds that was slaughtered, but those are the birds with chatases for sin offerings. Ukesab and chatas birds could be eaten, and the oiler bird is kula Hashem, burned up. Kesab chatas oipuacha, and the kohen thought it was a bird chatas, and he ate it and discovered it was an oiler chatas. Potter, he doesn't have to bring a carbon for having been moil behektish, for having used holiness inappropriately. My kamashmalon, tor b'dvar mitzvah potter. Since it's a mitzvah to eat the chatos, and he ate it thinking it was a chatos, he was tor b'dvar mitzvah. So that's it. That's Rabbi Yosi. Hanohach. So that's the same case as our case over here of carrying your lulav on before you were Yosi Yechiyav. Somehow the same. I might have thought we're now on 42A2 heading to the Mishnah, and that's where we're going to stop. There, in the case of the Mishnah, where one erred in doing the mitzvah, he's not liable. Because he's doing the actual mitzvah of eating. The mitzvah is to eat the chatas. He didn't realize it was an oil. Here he's being tired. Yeah. No. No. There by the chatos, he's potter from being a chatos.
Because he's doing a mitzvah.
No, not by the mitzvah. I'm sorry. I am saying it right. Here in the case of the carbon, just look at the art scroll. To perform a matter of mitzvah is not liable to an atonement of it. Are you sure about that? Let me take a look. Yes, you're right. My father is right. I'm learning it wrong. So let's go again. Here he's Tobi Devar Mitzvah by the mitzvah because he's going to carry the lulav. He's going to do the mitzvah. But here, when he goes eats, in fact, he's eating the oil. He's not doing the chatas, right? It's not the ma'isa achila. It's the actual eating. He's eating the wrong thing, and obviously, if you eat the wrong thing, you can't be mekayim the mitzvah. Kamash Malon, no. We don't go by what you're actually doing. In fact, we're going by your thought process. If you're thinking you're doing a mitzvah, you're part from bringing a carbon. Meisvei, is that a fact? Rabbi Yosi, I'm thank you, Daddy. Thank you for straightening that out. Meisvei, Rabbi Yosi, if one slaughtered on Shabbos a tomid that had not been properly examined, it wasn't checked over the previous 4 days for a blemish, chayiv chatos, you chayiv chatos for bringing a no good tomid on Shabbos. Right? You see, Rabbi Yosi holds you have to bring a chatos. He's doing the mitzvah. You shouldn't have to bring a chatos. You got to put that aside. Rav Yitzchak bar Ashon, Rav Huna, Rav Shmuel Chita said in the name of Rav Huna the Zayda, who said in the name of Rav Yitzchak ben Ashon, who said in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav. So we went all the way back from towards the end of the Amarayim, all the way to the end of the Tanoim, because Rav was the Talmud of Rebbe HaKadosh. The Rav is the last Tana and the first Amoira. You have to say Amir B'Shem Amrei. Exactly. They brought it to sheep from a chamber containing only animals that were not examined. So therefore, there was a sign on the door that said, unexamined sheep. He should have known. The guy was in such a rush, he didn't read the signs. The sign said you have to wear a mask when you come into this room, and you didn't listen. It's no wonder you get fined. Very negligent. Very good. We are up to the Mishnah on Mem Beis, Amid Aleph.